Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I'm Tony Gerdeman here, as always, with Tom. Tom, how's it going?
Tony, it is two of my very favorite kind of shows crammed into one. Number one, the one where we're outside and at the mercy of nature and all of nature's majesty and the loudness of that majesty. And number two, the kind of show where you know what we're doing, and I have had no opportunity to prep whatsoever. So this is going to be 100% vibes based, and we will see how good I am at vibes now, I guess.
Well, I will let you know your vibes will be on the record.
Uh-huh.
And so we are talking.
That's what the microphone's for. Yes.
We are recording. We're going to be talking about Jeremiah and what he's going to be able to do this year. What he's
Jeremiah
going to do.
who?
Jeremiah Smith. Thank you for that clarification. I went back. We did a little bit of a show of over-unders and predictions last year, and one of those things was Jeremiah Smith, because I put out on Twitter, give me some Jeremiah Smith over-unders, and somebody came back with 500 yards receiving, and I threw that in the show. We're both like, over.
Yeah.
Like, immediately over.
Yeah.
And then I went, for some reason, I went 995.5 instead of 999.5. We know I'm not mad great.
I don't think the 4 yards made a huge difference, but go on.
But we both went over. You were like a fairly easy over for me. That was your quote. But also before that show, as that show was beginning, you gave the same complaints, because these are all things that I was springing on you, and you're like, it's not fair to Tom. Nobody cares about what's fair to Tom. So I want to talk about what records could Jeremiah Smith set this year, because not just season records.
Yeah.
There's potential for him to already hit some career receiving records at Ohio State. And we are talking receiving records.
Yes. Got it.
So I'm just going to run through them, and we'll go one at a time to see whether we think.
I'm going to pull up his stats from last season just to have them in front of me. Okay.
76 catches, 1,315 yards, and 15 touchdowns.
Yes. 17.3 yards per reception, 82.2 yards per game. All right.
And basically like 4.75 receptions per game. So let's talk about receiving yards record, which is 1,606 from Jackson Smith-Njigba in 2021. And when we both went over the over-under last year, we were like, well, let's talk about a 16-game season.
Yes.
Which is what it was. And so here, Tom, you need just over 100 yards receiving per game for Jeremiah Smith, who's absolutely capable of that.
Sure.
Nobody questions that. However, there have only been 3 Ohio State receivers to ever average over 100 yards receiving for a season per game. Do you see 1607 for Jeremiah Smith this year?
I'm going to start us out with no. We're going to kill the vibes right away. I'm going to say no. And I think this is one of these things where you need too many different things to line up correctly. He's going to have games where he's going to have less than 100 yards.
Yep.
I mean, and I don't know that he's necessarily maybe he's the kind of guy who could put up a 275-yard game to make up for it.
We'll get to that.
Yeah, we'll get to that. Jackson Smith-Njigba had that Rose Bowl game where he had 354 yards or whatever that was. But you needed so much stuff to line up for that
you needed 2 guys turning pro.
2 guys turning pro, plus you needed a terrible defense, plus you needed a generational quarterback. Plus, I mean, there was so much stuff that needed to line up there. I'm going to say, I don't know whether they fall short of 16 games or he falls short of 100 yards average per game, but one way or the other, odds are this does not get broken.
Okay. I'm with you there. I think this is going to be maybe of the season totals that Jackson Smith-Njigba set, and we'll talk about those. This might be the most difficult, just because only 3 guys have had the kind of season over like 13 games or 12 games where they've hit this 100-yard game total, and they did it pretty well. Jackson Smith-Njigba that year, 123.5. Terry Glenn is 1995, 117.6. David Boston in 1998, 119.6. Now, could Jeremiah Smith do that? Yes, but do they need him to do that? Probably not.
Probably not. This is a much better defense, which means you're probably coming off the field in the third quarter of a decent number of games, and they're running the ball in the fourth quarter of a decent number of games. A lot of those years, I mean, it just the the Jackson Smith and Jigba season really stands out just because of how bad that defense was, and they just had to keep scoring. And the years where you had the huge C.J. Stroud numbers, the huge Dwayne Haskins numbers, were both years where, boy, that defense sure can't get off the field, and boy, they sure are giving up a lot more long touchdowns than you're used to seeing. And so the offense has to keep the pedal down a little longer. I think all of that, I'm not expecting that from this year's Ohio State defense, so I think that sort of works against you as well.
I think you're going to go no on this one again, this next one, because, as we know, you are a complete hater. Receptions in a game, the school record is 15. Jackson Smith and Jigba did it twice in 2021, once against Utah, once against Nebraska. He had, I think it was 15 catches for like 240 yards or so against Nebraska, and, of course, 347 yards. I'm going to go ahead and answer for you on this one. No, he's not going to get 15 catches. First, he would need 15 targets.
Yeah.
And that's a rarity nowadays.
Right. Here we go. There's the Gators that we've come to know and love. And a semi. Good. All right. Fantastic.
Love it.
So, yeah, I'm going to say no. And there's a couple pieces that go into this. It's not that he can't. I think you've got some of the stuff that's going to go into this that is the same stuff as the last question, where you're going to have defenses focused on taking him away and, okay, make someone else beat you. But also, Ohio State just has fewer snaps in a game than they did during the time that, I mean, the number of snaps on offense has dropped significantly since 2021. Some of that was intentional, some of that was clock rules. But either way, I think you're going to see that where you have 10, 15, 20 snaps fewer a game. That gives you a lot fewer opportunities. Plus, the diversification of the passing offense this year, you've got some real good other wide receivers out there. You've also got a real good tight end or two out there. You've also got running backs who are going to be part of that passing offense. And with a young quarterback, I think they would like to run the ball a decent amount if they can. So I just think it's going to be a challenge for him to get 15 targets, let alone, as you said, 15 receptions.
Imagine Jeremiah Smith in 2018 when they're running tempo and they're just throwing the ball 50 times a game, what he could do. Because now we're talking, Devontae Smith type of 2020 schedule where, Devontae Smith that year, 11, I think they played 11, 12 games. He had like 117 receptions.
Yeah.
And they just force-fed him. He averaged 9 catches a game, so whatever that equals out to. But they force-fed it to him. And they found ways to get him the ball. That's something that they're going to need to do this year with Jeremiah, just because there's going to be so much focus, and you don't want to not use him. Right. So I'm with you. We'll both go under that one. Here's one. I'll let the truck pass.
Two different major national delivery services. Now we just need DHL to go by.
That might just be a plane like smacking into the ground.
You speak that one into existence.
This show, 95 receptions in the season. Now, Jackson Smith and Jigba, again, 2021. What that would take this year, 16-game season, 6 catches a game. That does not seem like a lot.
No, it doesn't. He had 76 last year in 16 games. And
basically asking for one more game.
Yeah.
Which he should get. But
are they going to get to 16 games? If it's 14 games, then it works out to 7 a game, give or take. So then you're asking for a little more. And seven's a lot. It doesn't seem like that many. But again, you're running into some of the same issues we've talked about. Fewer snaps in a game, probably getting off the field a little earlier, clocking out for the day in the middle of the third quarter. This is closer to me. This is one where I really kind of have to think about it. And this is the first one where I'm thinking, I'm going to say no, but there's a real possibility I'm wrong here, because you could absolutely see him doing that, because having 11 catches in one game and then you have 3 in another, and that's fine. You're still kind of on track. I'm going to say no, but it's a no with a little bit of a pause in the middle.
It's a lot. There's only 3 guys who've ever done 7 catches a game at Ohio State in a season. There's only been 6 that have done at least 6. And one of those is Billy Anders back in 1966, the complete outlier.
I think it's Andy Anders.
In the Ohio State record book. So I think of all of these, I think that's possible in 16 games. I know it's all possible.
Right, yeah. This is the most possible,
right?
Especially if they get to 16 games. If you can tell me how many games they're playing, I'll tell you how likely that is.
Because I feel like 6 receptions in the game should be what they want. That should be the bar, because you want to have more than last year.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
he was 4.75 last year. If you want more than last year, shoot for 6, I guess. Receiving yards in the game, 347. We don't need to spend too much time on it.
All the stuff from before, the defense is going to be good enough that they don't need to do this probably, and pace of play and other receivers, and that involved all of this stuff that we talked about before. Plus, Utah was playing a running back as their slot corner in that game because due to injuries and just being shorthanded. That was such a one-of-one kind of situation that I think that's going to be very, very challenging for him to do. And listen, if they go up to Ann Arbor and he does it against Michigan, you feel free to let me know in the comments about you dummy back in August.
Yeah.
But
so 6 200-yard games in Ohio State history. 2 of them are by Jackson Smith-Njigba. Will Jeremiah Smith add his name to that list? He had 170-something against Tennessee or Oregon, where it's like that was going to be a 200-yard game, but they didn't need it anymore.
Yeah,
he had 150 in the first half or whatever, 120 in the first quarter. Mm-hmm. I kind of think they might be shooting a little bit for the Heisman this year. So, a 200-yard game here, I'm going to go ahead and say yes.
I'm also going to say yes, just because you're kind of trying to shoot the moon here to a certain degree where, Terry Glenn, I know, did that against Pitt, and that was a game where it was an absolute blowout. And Jackson Smith-Njigba did it in a game against Utah where it was a very, very close game. You said he did it. Oh, the other one was against Nebraska, which was also a somewhat close game. Mm-hmm. You need to do it against a team. The challenge is you're trying to, could he do it against Grambling? Yeah, absolutely. Is he going to do it against Grambling? Did you think they're playing Jackson Smith-Njigba, Jeremiah Smith in the second quarter when it's 45-0? No, I do not think they are going to do that. I think it's got to be a good enough team that he's out there for at least 3+ quarters, but also not so good a team where you're playing against, an elite secondary where it's going to be very hard to do that. I don't think he does against Texas. It's going to be a challenge to do it against Penn State, but also you're not going to do it against Grambler and Ohio University probably. So you got to find that sort of middle ground.
At Illinois, at Wisconsin, where
sir, may I remind you about the wind?
Well,
sir,
at both places.
At both places. Yeah, but it's somewhere like that. Mm-hmm. Like, hey, they find a matchup they love in that Wisconsin secondary or that Illinois secondary. It might be the Wisconsin secondary because I think Illinois took 3 or 4 players from Wisconsin's defense in the portal this year. I think it was 3. So maybe you can do it up in Wisconsin. But, yeah, it's going to take – it's a real nice day out in Seattle. Yeah. And you find a matchup you love out there. But it's going to be a really – I could probably tell you, if this happens, it's going to happen in one of these 4 types of games.
And it's Ohio State never gets up by enough to take him off the field. So it's always a 14-21.
DeMond Williams leads Washington on a couple more touchdown drives than you'd think. And it's a 35-21 game in the fourth quarter. Yeah.
Santonio Holmes, 224 yards against Marshall in 2004, the Mike Nugent game.
Which you're thinking, hey, that's a non-power team. That must have been a blowout.
No, that was boy, what a season that was.
Gary, all the Ohio State seasons, that was certainly one of them. Yes,
Gary Williams, 220 yards against Florida State in 81.
Speaking of bad Ohio State defenses, yes,
and they needed all of those yards.
I think they lost that game.
Yeah, I believe so.
That's one where Arch Leister was. That's one of those great outliers in Ohio State history where he had 400 and something yards.
Yeah, that was the record for a long time until Dwayne Haskins broke it.
Yeah.
And then David Boston, 217 yards, 10 catches against Michigan
in 98. Yep.
Exactly. So, okay. We have both decided that 200 yards, not 347. Mm-hmm. So then we move to this next one, which is touchdown catches in a game. 3 guys have done it 4 times, 4 catches. So Dane Sanzenbacher, 2010 against Eastern Michigan. Mm-hmm. We all remember Noah Brown against Oklahoma in 2016, and then Terry Glenn in 95 against Pitt. This is another one where it takes a desire to do it, and do you or it's an Oklahoma thing where you need it. So if it happens against Ohio, this is a thing we're doing.
Yes.
For the attention, for the clout, the TD clout. If it happens against anybody else or Penn State or Michigan, it's like you go with what works. So do you see him adding himself to the 4 touchdown catch legacies of Noah Brown, Terry Glenn, and Dane Sanzenbacher? Basically, if he does it, there's your Mount Rushmore of Ohio State wide receivers.
Yeah, I can't argue with that's just math. I can't argue with math.
Stats say it.
Yeah. This feels to me less likely than 200, but also I don't really feel comfortable saying no. This is, the structure of this show is such that we either have to say yes or we have to say no. Right. And in reality, in my head, I'm just kind of doing the math here. Like, well, this is much more than a 5-10% chance where you'd need everything to go right, like the yardage in a game. Is this 50%? I couldn't say it's not 50%, which is, we'll put that in the headline. I couldn't say it's not 50%. Jeremiah Smith, : Well,
if you're going to put down $20 on it, the better bet is to bet him to do it, because I don't know what the odds would be.
I was going to say, what are the odds? I feel like I should be getting plus.
Are you getting even money for him not doing it?
I feel like you should be getting better odds on him doing it. It's plus 150 or something like that. It feels like this is not probably an even money bet.
For him to not do it?
For him to not do it feels like it's probably more than 50% for him to not do it. But it's like 60-40, something like that.
So then at that point...
I
have some fun.
I kind of default to the... Yeah, but you would have lost a lot of money betting against Jeremiah Smith last year in virtually any area. So even though I think this is probably less than 50-50 to happen, I also feel like, you could see him doing this in almost any game. Yeah. If they came out and decided we're going to get him 4 touchdowns in the first half against Grambling, in the first 25 minutes of the game against Grambling, they could absolutely do that. Like, what do they want to do against Grambling? Because I go back to the Florida A&M game, which was a very similar situation where it's like why did you schedule this game? Because of the band. The football team is sort of ancillary to the fact of the band. And in that case, the band didn't even come.
No.
And that was one of the least competitive football games I've ever seen, full stop. This is going to be probably, they're going to keep it simple, but and I would guess that Grambling's going to just try and basically box and one Jeremiah Smith for most of that game. I don't know if that matters, but
they may be instructed. You know how like when you bring in somebody to scrimmage you and you're like, this is the defense that we want to see. This might be like, it's the all man, no zone, press, or else you won't get your money.
I'm going to. Long story short, I'm going to say yes, he does it. I don't actually feel like this is better than 50-50, but also I feel like even though it's not better than 50-50, I feel like it should be better than 50-50. So I'm gonna say yes, he does it.
It's 50-50, yes or no. So and that I'm with you.
Would you like to take what's behind door number 3, Monty?
No, we're not doing that again. Too much math. And as we know, not great. Most 100-yard games in a season for a wide receiver is 8 by Marvin Harrison in 2023, David Boston in 1998. Jeremiah Smith only had 5 last year.
Yeah, but how?
Because you also had the running game. You also had Emeka Egbuka, Carnell Tate, fewer snaps. Although I would say these are probably commensurate snaps to what they did in '98. With all the huddling and things like that.
Yeah.
So you had D. Miller there in '98, or at that point, it was D. Miller,
almost 1,000 yards.
Yeah, like 951 or something. So. Like there was that. You also had some tight end usage there with maybe John Lumpkin. Yeah. But 5 seems pretty low, and it's like, boy, kind of disappointing. You look back on that season, pretty disappointing there, Jeremiah. Can he do it? Stop saying can. The answer is yes. Will.
He? Yeah, boy, this is one where the 8 seems low. The 5 seems incredibly low, and this is one where my brain is going, well, dummy, take the hint that this is not as easy to do as you think it is, because you would think, are they mowing the field across the street? Of course they are. Absolutely they are. I think this is one that is not as easy to do as it seems like it should be, but also I feel like I've already said no on this 2 or 3 times, and I don't feel like saying no on Jeremiah Smith that frequently is a very smart idea. And again, could you see him? He could do this by Halloween, probably, right? I mean, you could certainly see him doing this. I wonder if, I mean, you mentioned the Heisman campaign.
Mm-hmm.
I go back to the 1995 season, not with Terry Glenn, but with Eddie George. And I remember the kickoff class against Boston College. Eddie George finished with 99 yards rushing, and John Cooper later said, well, if we thought about it, we would have gotten him 100. Because what does it matter? But it matters.
Yeah.
It's just look down his list of things, and he got over 100 yards against Texas, or Texas held him under 100 yards, or what, that you get to that kind of level of nitty gritty stuff. I'm going to say yes. I'm going to say yes. He does it because you absolutely could see him doing it, and I think you're going to have certain times in the season where they're going to, hey, you're up 17 points in the early fourth quarter. Let's get that dagger, and while we're at it, maybe we can get Jeremiah one more touchdown.
How much do you think Brian Hartline is pushing for it? So, hey, I recruited a Heisman Trophy winner.
Well, yeah, and that's part of it too. Your offensive coordinator is a wide receivers coach. Your head coach, who specializes in the offensive side of the ball, is a quarterback. Yeah, they've got Tyler Bowen as the run game coordinator, but they brought in a run game coordinator because the two guys who are kind of the guys who are going to be most, this is still a Ryan Day offense, even if it's Brian Hartline calling it. Those guys are both kind of going to lean a little bit towards the passing side of things. So I probably should have taken that into account more. But I'm just now thinking that Ryan Day is the head coach.
Here's the thing, though: if Jeremiah Smith has, say, 3 or 4 more 100-yard games than he did last year, isn't that going to put him like that? Yeah, is that 1,606 yards, 1,607 yards? Not,
Yeah. Depends on how many games they play.
Yeah, and the other thing is if he gets more out of what he did against Penn State and Michigan, where they held him under 60 yards both. In Texas, 3 yards. Like if he just has average games there, and then also raises his game a little, 1,607 yards. We've gone past that.
We're not going back and revisiting these things.
Relitigating.
No.
I will say, I'm going to say no, that he does not get to 8. That way, Tom, we love to embrace debate. Mm-hmm. So now, I want you to think about this. The career records at Ohio State for receptions, receiving yards, touchdowns. Mm-hmm. He is 20 touchdowns away from tying the 35.
Okay.
He's not going to get to the receptions, which is 205. So he'd need, 125 or whatever, a lot. Yeah. However, Tom, he's 1,584 yards away from breaking the all-time receiving yardage record. I feel like if you let Ryan Day and Brian Hartline know that now or beforehand, maybe they do, maybe they don't. But boy, is that not a nice little target to shoot for? 2 years setting all of the records, or does that make the school look bad that it only took 2 years?
Well, I mean, here's the thing: you can go through the list of wide receivers at Ohio State, and there are a bunch of pretty good names on that list. So, this is not a the career receiving record at Iowa. Wow! I think everyone is familiar with the wide receivers in Ohio State history, going back to Chris Carter and all those guys.
Billy Anders,
yes. I think so. I don't think that devalues it at all. I think this is not something that I don't think they make this the central pillar of the season.
Right.
Is get Jeremiah Smith to break this record this season. I think you're running into a lot of the same issues, obviously, because since we're only talking about a 30-yard difference or whatever it is from the single season record. So I'm going to say no, but
that's a great point.
He is receiving yardage total receptions total, yardage total, touchdowns total. So 120 whatever and 1,500 and whatever and 20 touchdowns. He doesn't break any of them this year, but he breaks all of them by October 10th of next season, something like that. October 20th of next. I mean, receptions is probably the last one.
He's 130 away from owning it. So
yeah, yes. Okay. So he breaks two of those. He breaks yardage and touchdowns by October 15th, 2026, and he breaks the receptions total by the end of the regular season of 2026. So none this year, but all early to mid next season.
You know, I'm going for it. I'm going to say he's going to own the career receiving yardage total after this season.
So your prediction is that he will have between 1,500
and I could get some amazing odds for that.
You sure could, and I would
just go ahead and there are no prop bets in Ohio, so no player bets in Ohio. So, but boy, if you really just nail that one.
Buckeye Weekly Podcast, brought to you by Wheeling Island.
So that's all I've got. Do you feel bad about being so doubtful of Jeremiah Smith?
So this is, thank you to our special guest host, another Gator somehow. I think so many of these records are incredible one-off records where if you're asking me, does he beat whatever the record was before Jackson Smith-Njigba showed up? I think those are probably a lot of yeses. Is he number 2 in a lot of these categories by the end of the season? I think the answer is probably a lot of yeses. There are just so many one-off things that had to happen for those things to happen that he's amazing, but he has a lot of those things working against him, where the defense is better, the tempo is slower, the offense is more diversified. You've got a lot of that stuff working against you, where, if saying that he will not break a bunch of career records before the end of his second season makes me a hater, then Tony, I guess I'm a hater, but he will own every record in the Ohio State record book by the time he's done.
And if he doesn't own it, it's not worth having.
Yeah, it's either he owns it or he's within, he's got 3 of the top 5 or something in terms of career single season receiving yardage.
Right. There are also those like average yards per catch where you just got these crazy guys that are like 32 yards per catch because they had 16 catches over the course of their 4 years. So if we remove Jackson Smith-Njigba, the receiving receptions is 90, Paris Campbell in 2018. But again, that's you get to the 90s.
Real high.
So I'm going to say no. The yardage is 1435 by David Boston, which feels extremely attainable.
There I'm probably saying yes.
And then the touchdowns, which we didn't even get into, and I forgot to.
Didn't he break it last year?
No, Terry Glenn is 17.
Terry Glenn is 17. Okay.
So he had 15 last year.
Yeah.
And dropped the first one. You could have had 16, dropped one. I'm sure throughout the course of the season, if they would have targeted more, you could find 3 more in there. 17, I'm going to say yes, he's going to get. And I don't feel great about saying that. I just feel like they're going to attack with him somehow, and there's going to be a couple of 3 touchdown games like Marvin had. I think there's going to be some chunks in there.
Yeah, you're going to have some 3 touchdown games, and they have a couple 3 touchdown games. Maybe one of them is a 4 touchdown game, and you get a bunch of ones. If you say over under 0.5 touchdowns per game for him, you're going to feel like an idiot every time you bet the under. 100. So you figure he's going to have at least a touchdown in 8 or 9 regular season games, and he has another 2 and 1. He's got another 1 and then 1 or 2, and then he's got a 4, so we can have 3 there. So 3 plus 2 plus 1 plus 1 is 7. So I've got him to 15 at the end of the regular season. You're probably in there. I'll say yes, just because they're gonna, they'll play some kind of postseason game and get some kind. So I'll say at least ties the touchdown record or single season touchdown record.
Terry Glenn did that in, I believe, 11 games because he was hurt he got hurt against Minnesota, and then he missed at least 1 game.
Yeah.
Ridiculous season that he had. So there you go. Jeremiah Smith going to set some records, going to not set some others, but will eventually then set those records as a junior at Ohio State. So Want to thank you all for tuning in. Hit that thumbs up before you go if you're watching it on YouTube. Of course, a 5-star rating and review wherever you're listening would be appreciated as well. And also, you can continue to find us at BuckeyeHuddle.com. Sign up now. Great time to sign up. The season, Tom, I don't know how many days until the season. That's not my thing. Right around the corner. Get ready for it. You can find us there talking about it at BuckeyeHuddle.com. Thank you all for tuning in, and we will talk to you guys later.